If people can't appreciate the concept of country western music band troupe except they're bears, may God have mercy on your cold soul. I think Walt Disney World mostly overestimates the amount of children being eaten per show. That stat is way down from the 70s. Hashtag food for thought.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball. Today we're finishing off the Dynasty rookie ranks from the 2019 NBA draft class, looking at number 20 all the way down to the huge surprise at number 1, Michael Bolton.
Let's get to it.
Let's get to it indeed. We will start, of course, with number 20, and that is Horton Tucker of the Lakers. The Lakers bought back into the second round. The Lakers have had really strong success in second round picks, late first round picks, buying these selections, and I don't think this is any different. I thought Horton Tucker had a chance to be a top 20 player. Obviously, I've got him ranked 20 in my Dynasty ranks. A bit of a weird sort of looking guy. 6'4" with about a 9-foot wingspan. Not someone who has shown a great shooting stroke, shooting just 30% from three, 63% from the line, but a very intriguing type of a player, a guy that can generate steals. In his one season at Iowa State, in just 27 minutes a game, 1.3 steals, 5 boards, 2.5 assists, 12 points. Just a lot to like with Horton Tucker in terms of his overall impact on a team. The Lakers, we know that team is looking not all that deep at the moment. There are options there on the wing depending on what happens with guys like Caldwell Pope and Bullock and those sort of players. I would imagine Horton Tucker has at least an outside shot at rotation minutes this season. Not a player I thought should have slid to the second round at all, and a really weird body and skill set. There's a lot of unknowns still with Horton Tucker, but he's a guy that I would take that upside shot on because there is an initial spot for opportunity for him there with the Lakers, and I just like a lot of the things that he is able to do on the court and being able to project that out as a defensive wing. Obviously, guys who are defensive wings who show a little bit of offensive upside, not quite there at this point. And in fact, he did shoot 33% from three during conference play. That's a lot different to how he shot during the rest of the season. But still, the free throws are a concern, just 56% in conference play as well. But defensively, he's already got to step up, and that body size, that wingspan is a really big thing for Horton Tucker, and that could enable him to generate a pretty solid steal rate. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's able to block shots at a decent rate as well for a wing. So I've got Horton Tucker coming in there at number 20. At number 19, I've gone with the Charlotte Hornets number 12 overall pick in the draft, and that's PJ Washington. Out of Kentucky, again, I do like to try and give benefit of the doubt to Kentucky players. Sophomore guys, I tend to be a little bit harder on a lot of the time. PJ Washington was okay as a freshman. He did step it up as a sophomore, 15 and 7.5. The 1.2 blocks and 0.8 steals are nice. He did shoot a really intriguing 42% from three-point land as a sophomore as well. Only 24% as a freshman. So I guess there's which one of those is the real ones. I'm just not sure where Washington. What's he good at? Like, what's his main overall skill? I think he can be. This is really high praise, but he's not this guy like an Al Horford, extremely light. In that he's able to contribute in multiple different areas, but in low volumes. He's never going to be as good as Horford, because if I thought he was as good as Horford, he'd be up there at number 2 or number 3 in these rankings. The free throw shooting does need to improve from PJ Washington, and again, this I've talked about the strength of this, the relative strength of this draft class quite a bit, and there's so much uncertainty with these guys that there is lots of guys here which, after summer league, there could be significant changes with these. When I see these guys on a court against other players with more NBA-ish caliber players, and seeing how they get used by their team, which is always really important. Say someone like Malcolm Brogdon coming out of Virginia, when he was in summer league, the Bucks put every possession in his hands to be the point guard. Well, that's really interesting, because he didn't play point guard much at Virginia, and they were really forcing that ball into his hands as the point guard. And then in his rookie season, he came out and he played point guard and won Rookie of the Year. That's why I got a lot higher on him then. So it is important to note those things in summer league. As for PJ, I'm just not sure that there is a massively high ceiling for Washington as we move forward. There is opportunity in Charlotte with only Cody Zeller and Marvin Williams at the 4 and the 5, so he could get an opportunity to play significant-ish minutes as a rookie. So that's always interesting when we can get opportunities like that. I just don't know about him as a long-term starting option. So PJ Washington is our 19th ranked player. This one probably will surprise a lot of people, and I went with Deandre Hunter at number 18. Yes, I am aware that Deandre Hunter was the 4th overall pick in the draft, but you can go through every single draft back to when the draft started, and there are plenty of shit players who got picked in the top 5, top 2, top 3. I'm not saying Hunter is a shit player, but just because you're picked in the top 5 doesn't mean you are going to pan out. Hashtag Hashim Thabit. Anthony Bennett. I don't know. How many more do I have to go through? I look at Hunter as a bad use of assets for the Hawks to jump up and grab him. I wouldn't have picked him at 4. I definitely wouldn't have given up assets to move up to pick him at 4. And then pair that all together with his fantasy translations, they're not great. Low steal and block numbers, I do give him somewhat of a benefit of the doubt with Virginia's system lowering those numbers down. No assists, low rebounds. He shot the ball well, but really slow release on his shots gives me concern in the NBA. Struggled, big step up from freshman to a sophomore, 20 minutes up to 33 minutes. He averaged 15, 5, and 2 with 0.6 steals and 0.6 blocks in only 33 minutes. For a defensive specialist, that's really poor. I don't believe in him ever being a big offensive guy. And he shot 44% from 3. That's obviously excellent. Under 3 attempts per game is where the concern comes in. Like, that's not volume at all. 62 true shooting is really, really strong, but still only a 27% three-point attempt rate, 24 usage. He's a very low usage guy to be picked this high in the draft. And when we're looking at it from a fantasy point of view, if you're not having any of that offensive game, you need to be a big defensive stat generator, and he isn't. And that's what gives me concern with Deandre Hunter. I think that he's got a huge chance to be a starter for the Hawks this season. But Bazemore traded, Evan Turner comes in. There's him and Cam Reddish to open or battle for that number 3, for that position small forward on the roster. I think those guys could cut into each other's minutes. But I think Hunter, as a rookie, would need to play 40 minutes a night to really even come close to cracking the top 100. And he's obviously not going to do that. And I just don't see him as a long-term, really, really strong fantasy player or NBA player. As I said, I wasn't a massive fan of the selection of Deandre Hunter by the Hawks at that position. So his defensive metrics are pretty strong. Defensive PIPM probably would want it a bit higher for a guy that's going to be his calling card. And I don't really love, as I said, those defensive numbers. But we'll see how that pans out with the change from the Virginia system now playing for the Hawks. But I am obviously not high on Deandre Hunter. That means in any rookie dynasty draft, I'm probably not going to be going anywhere near him because he's not going to fall down to 18 in most of those. And that's a pretty bold ranking for me. So that's 2 top 10 guys I've got outside that top 18, Hunter at 18 and Rui Hachimura in the 20s as well. I just don't believe in those guys really strongly. But as I said, there's so much flatness in terms of overall value in these players that things can change really, really quickly. At number 17, a player who we're not going to get a huge amount out of in this season, and that's Chuma Okeke, chosen by the Orlando Magic with picks number 16. He's going to miss the majority of this season with a torn ACL. He's a 6'8 wing, small forward, play up some power forward as well. Now we know there's Aaron Gordon, there's John Isaac on the wings there and at the 4. So the opportunities for Okeke to play those roles is going to be limited initially anyway, but you would imagine that eventually you'd want Isaac at the 5, Gordon at the 4, Okeke at the 3. Depending on what happens with Bumba, of course. Gordon's always name seems to come up in trade talks occasionally, even though I don't think that's necessarily something that's on the cards. What I really like about Okeke is the defensive stats, and this is what Deandre Hunter should be. 1.8 steals, 1.2 blocks in 29 minutes. He did take a really big step up from his freshman season at Auburn, where he only averaged 0.7 and 0.7 in 22 minutes. Shot 39% from 3 in both of his seasons as well. Not great volume, but decent volume. 3.2 attempts, 3-point attempts per game across his college career. Free throws are okay. Really strong defensive box score plus minus. Is able to move really, really well on the court. And I'm not really all that concerned about the ACL injury limiting him when he does return from it. We expect pretty much nothing from him in his first season, but I do like that ability for Okeke to generate steals, to provide a little bit of offense, and to be an above-average rebounder as well with some okay efficiency. I like Truma, but it is a little bit of a draft and stash type situation. This is the next one, number 16, is one that I'm banking on upside. I'm not all that confident in it because Nasir Little really did struggle during his time at North Carolina. Couldn't even get starters minutes, played only 18 minutes a night for North Carolina, averaged 10 and 4.5 with half a steal and half a block and 0.7 assists, shot a disappointing 27% on threes. His twos were alright, finished at the rim pretty good free throw shooter. Advanced numbers weren't spectacular by any stretch. The minutes are really low, and it is troubling to see a guy that came in with so much hype and fanfare really not be able to crack the court. But that's why he was picked up at 25 by the Blazers. I still believe in him. I like the rebound rate. I think the finishing at the rim, the free throw shooting, they're all encouraging indicators. The steal rate's not ideal, but it's not a complete disaster. I think there's a legitimate chance he ends up as a better player than Cam Reddish and a better player than DeAndre Hunter. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be the case, but there's an opportunity there with Mo Harkless manning the three, Rodney Hood perhaps back or not, Al-Farouq Aminu, the chief.
Sometimes may be good, sometimes may be shit.
If he's gone, could Little come in? Now, we have to remember the way that Portland treats their rookies. They don't really play very much. Zach Collins played a little bit the season before, had a larger role this year. Anthony Simons, Gaz Trent Jr., they barely played at all this season. I imagine Simons moves into the rotation at the very least this season. So Little, I think we'll see little spot minutes here from him this season. And then looking at year 2, year 3 is when he really should push to become that starter. And I do think he does have the upside to at least be a low-end Mo Harkless-ish type starter for this Portland Trailblazers team. At number 15, a second-round pick, Bruno Fernando. A lot of this pick, and I don't like to make many selections based on team, but that does have an impact, especially for the first 3 to 4 seasons. But there's a really big opportunity for Bruno Fernando in Atlanta. At the moment, their centers are Alex Len and the Wizard, Omari Spellman. We don't know if the Undertaker, Dwayne Dedmon's going to be back. Now, I don't imagine Fernando's coming in and starting straight away. In fact, I think the Hawks would want to start John Collins and eventually groom him to be a center. But when you go to a situation where you're battling Len and Spellman for starting minutes or for center minutes in general over the next couple of seasons, Len probably won't be there past this season. When you come in with pretty strong fantasy translation numbers, with great free throw numbers, good field goal percentage, solid block numbers, really strong rebounds as well, it's all encouraging. 13.5 with 11 boards, 2 blocks, shot 30% from 3, limited attempts. He barely took any threes at all, but really strong finishing numbers, great free throws, gives you some of that hope that he can step out and hit the 3. Really strong defensive numbers as well for Bruno Fernando, and that opportunity is really interesting to see whether he is going to get at least any sort of opportunity. The Hawks aren't adverse to playing rookies in big roles. Again, I think we're going to see more Len. We're going to see more Collins at the 5, and we're going to see Spellman. But as a third center, as sometimes a second center, especially later on in this season, I think Fernando has a real chance to come in, play an A-team. I think he's got a real chance to be better than Omari Spellman, and he could be better than him by the end of this season already. And I think he's got scope to improve his game, especially offensively. So Bruno Fernando, a guy that I've got here pretty high up at number 15. At number 14, we're looking at Grant Williams, now of the Boston Celtics, formerly of Tennessee. The Celtics, who knows what's going to happen with their team? A lot up in the air. We know that Aaron Baines is gone, Al Horford and Kyrie Irving likely gone. We don't know if Marcus Morris is going to be back. Shemi Ojeleye and Gershon Yabesele, not guys that have really panned out at the 4. So there's a massive opportunity for Williams, a 6'7" power forward from Tennessee, 3-year college player. Averaged 19 and 8 and 7.5 with 3 assists, 1.1 steals, 1.5 blocks, 82 from the line, 33 from 3 and 59 from 2. I'll continue to throw this comparison out. Paul Millsap is the guy I look at for Williams. Millsap was a second-round pick back in the day and had multiple first-round fantasy seasons. I don't think Williams is necessarily going to be that good, but there's an opportunity here originally. He's one of the smartest players in the entire NBA draft. He knows where to be. He knows where to go. He knows how to generate defensive numbers. He can, I think, become a better shooter from 3. He was okay in his junior season, but not so much in the other seasons. But I think there's real upside here with passing, rebounding, steals, blocks, field goal percentage, free throw percentage, and some scoring. I think that Williams, in the end, I think, look at these guys and go, well, maybe I've ranked PJ Washington a little bit too low. I can understand that. Maybe I've gone a little bit low on DeAndre Hunter. That's fine. But the other one I really look at, especially in this group of 10 guys here, is Grant Williams. I think there's a real chance he's a top 6 or 7 guy out of this class. and a real steal. And before you say, oh, well, why is he picked in the 20s? Just remember, go back through all these drafts. There's the obvious examples: Kawhi Leonard, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Rudy Gobert, Nikola Jokic. These are all NBA-type players, MVPs, finals MVPs, who were picked outside the lottery, second round in Jokic's case. But also, go back to some of these guys who haven't developed into the... Because you can, oh, that's the exception. But John Collins was the 19th pick a couple of years ago. We're already considering him a top 40 fantasy player heading into his third season. Like, there are plenty of these guys who get picked in this area who aren't... who weren't those top 5, top 7 picks. So I think that Williams has a real chance to step up and become a really solid fantasy player. Number 13, Matisse Thybulle. The Sixers, I think, screwed this up in terms of drafting him, making it just so obvious that they wanted him, so the Celtics grabbed him and then extracted assets off them, which included Carson Edwards. So I think shit effort there from Elton Brand to do it, but Thybulle was always going to be a really strong fit on the Sixers team. He's going to have to battle DRC Zaire Smith for some of those backup minutes, but in the end, one of those guys could actually be starting depending on what Tobias Harris or Jim Butler do in free agency. So there's going to be minutes. Now, Thybulle put up some of the most ludicrous numbers you'll ever see in college from a defensive point of view. Some of that is the zone scheme that Washington runs. But you know what? If it is the zone scheme that Washington runs, then other players would have done it. And the fact is, they didn't. So while you can say, well, it's the scheme, and there is some truth to that, some of it is also that Matisse Thybulle is a bloody good defender, and he knows how to jump passing lanes. He knows how to do that. 3.5 steals and 2.3 blocks is batshit crazy. And as a junior, he averaged 3 steals as well and 1.4 blocks. His three-point shooting's weird. His 4 seasons in college, 37, 41, 37, 31. So last year it looked shit, but his other 3 seasons, pretty strong and on decent attempts as well. His free throw shooting, 71. What? 84. That's great. 71 again? What are you talking about? Back to 85. I think he's got potential as a catch-and-shoot shooter. He will never be a high-usage guy. There's no one that needs to be confused about that. Well, maybe he can do it. No, he can't do it. He's not going to ever do that and take big usage and be this huge off-the-dribble guy. He's going to be a defensive specialist, but we've seen plenty of guys that all they do is get steals, but he can get blocks, he can hit threes, he can hit free throws, he can do multiple things, and I think he will have multiple top 100 fantasy seasons. They won't be big top 100s, they won't be top 40s or top 30s, but I think we'll see a couple of top 90, maybe 1 or 2 of those from Matisse Thybulle. And if anything happens positively with his offensive game, then he can really become a very, very strong fantasy option and NBA player. The next guy we look at is the cousin of the Clippers star rookie, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and this is Nikhil Alexander-Walker from Virginia Tech, a 2-year player. Alexander Walker went to the Pelicans, so the opportunity for Alexander Walker this season is not quite there. Alfred Payton, we don't know whether he'll be back, but of course there's Lonzo Ball, there's Drew Holiday, there's Etuan Moore in the backcourt, so getting those minutes initially, it might be tough, but Lonzo is hardly a beacon of health. Drew Holiday's had issues in the past. Etuan Moore had a number of leg injuries last season. Alexander Walker is a 6'5 guard who can shoot the three, who can defend. Those things are so important. He averaged 16 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists with almost 2 steals, shot 38% from 3 across his college career, a strong free throw shooter as well. I look at this and I go, again, so are these guys all bunched up. I go, well, I could see Alexander Walker being the 7th best guy from this class. I could actually see that happening. I could see that with Williams. It's so pushed in and closed in. Alexander Walker's in an interesting spot to develop there. You could see that if they do move on from Drew, eventually having Alonzo, Alexander Walker, Ingram, Zion, Hayes, 5-man lineup in 4 years' time, I could really see that happening. And I think Alexander Walker has a real chance at a couple of top 70 seasons, fueled by okay assist numbers, but mainly the steal numbers and the really good shooting. And I think he can up his offensive volume a little bit as well. So Nikhil Alexander Walker is my number 12 overall player for Dynasty Rookie Ranks. At number 11, it's his future teammate or current teammate, Jackson Hayes out of Texas. Now, one of the big things for Hayes here that we look at from a negative point of view is the really, really low rebound rate. That is a concern for Hayes. Why wasn't he able to get any rebounds at all playing for Texas? That is something we do have to have some level of concern about. But a lot of the other stuff is interesting. Now, the Pelicans today, they didn't offer a qualifying offer to Sheik Diallo, so he's an unrestricted free agent. He's gone. So far, their centers are Christian Wood, Jahlil Okafor, and Jackson Hayes. Now, I don't think that Hayes is going to be the starter this season. The Pelicans look like they're clearing out cap space to make a run at someone. I don't know who it's going to be, but it looks like they're going to make some sort of free agency splash. But Hayes' ability to be a massively high percentage field goal guy, a high shot blocker, I think he can get usage up 12 points at some point in his career. And the encouraging thing is, now he took absolutely no shots away from the rim, like just none at all. But he's a good free throw shooter. So if that good free throw shot can turn into an elbow jumper, can turn into some sort of other option, maybe it's not a three-point shot, but at least some other option to open things up, that's really helpful. He averaged 10 and 5 in 23 minutes with 2.2 blocks and 0.6 steals, shooting 74% from the line and an absurd 73% from the field. He has got a lot there to happen, a lot of defensive upside, a lot of rim protection. Not the guy I would have picked at number 8 if I was in that draft for the Pelicans, but still some upside with a very clear path to become that guy that does pair alongside Zion Williamson in the future. Let's go to the next bunch of guys. At number 10, it's Sekou Doumbouya of the Detroit Pistons. I thought he slid a lot. I would have had him at pick number 9 most likely. In this draft, I think the Pistons got a real steal there with Doumbouya, one of the youngest players, if not the youngest player in the entire NBA draft. The Pistons have a little bit of a hole on the wing there. We don't know if the Duke Wayne Ellington will be back. Of course, there is the Duck Luke Kennard, and there's the Shark Bruce Brown. Baby shark, there's Kyrie Thomas as well. I think he'll get some rotation minutes this season. So I don't think we're going to have too much from Doumbouya this season playing for the Pistons, but he is a really, really interesting upside player. A guy that only played 18 minutes a night last season over in France, but shot 32% from 3, averaged 7 points, 3 boards, 0.7 steals in those 18 minutes, which is encouraging, half a block. He's got that ability to be a wing guy who can score and can shoot efficiently, but also generate some assists and get some steals and block some shots. I do like Doumbouya's upside, really strong fantasy translations from him as well, and especially considering he doesn't turn 19, I think, until December. Let me double check that. Yeah, December 23rd is when he turns 19. So he is exceptionally young. You are banking on this for a couple. I think he's coming over this season, almost guaranteed he's coming over. But you're looking at this as a couple of years in the future. But getting a wing, a 6'9" wing to play alongside Blake Griffin, to play alongside Andre Drummond, to play alongside Luke Kennard, I think is going to be really, really interesting and key for this Pistons team. And there's a huge opportunity for Doumbouya to really take that step forward and develop over the next couple of seasons. So someone I'm really interested in there at pick number 10. At number 9, I've got Cam Reddish. Now, his numbers are obviously horrible coming out of college, especially the shooting. But there are two, and I've said this over and over again, there are 3 things that are encouraging from Reddish when we look at his college numbers. He played 30 minutes a night. Okay, that's good. But he averaged 1.6 steals. Very interesting. He averaged 77% on his free throws. Very interesting. And he took 7.5 3-point attempts per game. That 3-point volume is key. Now, he shot 33% from 3, which isn't great, but it's not terrible. Where he struggled is he couldn't finish shit at the rim. 39% on his 2s for an overall field goal percentage of 36%. It cannot get worse than that. That is the encouraging thing. And he's got those positives, the free throws, the steals. The 3-point volume is really encouraging for Radish. I don't know how things are going to go. Look, the team that he's going to play on here in the Hawks is going to be more friendly to his game in terms of spacing than that Duke team was. Trae Young obviously spaces the shit out of the court. Kevin Huerter, Fanapants, he can do it as well. Can Johnny Collins develop a bit of a 3-point shot? I think Radish has a massive chance and probably is going to be a better player than Deandre Hunter as we move forward. He's got defensive ability. He's a 3-and-D wing type of guy, and he's got a couple of things there as good indicators for fantasy production. So that's why I've got him at number 9. At number 8.
Problem with my Go-Go-Mobile. Go-Go-Mobile? No, not the dart. Not the dart.
Yes, the dart. Goga Bidadze of, how do I say the name of this team? Buduknost. He was originally played for Mega BMAX, Nikola Jokic's former team. They loaned him out to Buduknost for the EuroLeague, and he put up some really, really strong numbers. 23 minutes a night across all competitions last year, almost 14 points with 6.5 boards and 2 blocks, 0.6 steals, and shot 40% on threes. 68% on his free throws as well. Now, he does have some struggles perimeter-wise defensively, but this is a guy that I think has or should be a starter at some point. Now, the team that he's on now, it's not an ideal scenario. Domantas Sabonis, Miles Turner, and Goga Bitadze, all three of these guys are starting caliber centers in the NBA. I think that Bitadze is definitely, I think he's going to be better than Sabonis. I don't have really too much worry about that. Turner up in the air, some people will say yes, some people will say no, but I don't think all three of these guys are going to remain on the Pacers long term. He was too good for them to let slide, and they made the right choice and grabbed him. It's probably going to be a lean couple of years for Bitadze initially in terms of fantasy production, but he's got all the markings of a Yusuf Nurkic type of a player who can put together top 50 fantasy seasons just finding the right spot. We know Nurkic had those issues early in his career, sharing the court with Nikola Jokic. Went to Portland and bang, here we are until he broke his leg. Big numbers coming from Nurkic. So I really do like Bitadze. I never thought he should have fallen this far. The Pelicans should have taken him at pick number 8. That's the center I would have gone for there. Scoring, rebounding, shot blocking, efficiency, three-point shooting. He can do so many different things. Passing will never quite be there for Bitadze. Not a good steals guy, but really does have starter upside. Here's where things get extraordinarily confusing for me, because at number 7, it's Darius Garland of the Cavs. I think that backcourt pairing of him and Colin Sexton could be an absolute disaster with both of their inability to defend and inability to pass. That is a real concern. We only saw those 5 games from Garland last season, averaging 16 points, but only 2.6 assists. Never showed great passing creation through his AAU days either. A low steal rate, but shot the 3 ball fantastically, 48%. Of course, it's on no attempts. We're talking about, where's the totals I'm looking at here? 23 attempts. So it means nothing really, but he is known as a good 3-point shooter. He can be a bit of a scoring type of a guy, but I just worry about some of the other things that Garland does. I could be really wrong about this ranking here. He could easily be the 3rd best player in this class, but I worry about the fit. The low assists are a concern. The lack of defense is an issue as well. Can he generate steals, and will he be able to hit threes at that elevated rate in the NBA? So I've got him here at number 7, but these next 4 or 5 guys are really, really close. At number 6, we've got Jarrett Colva of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Colva has got an interesting game. The assist numbers for him are really nice. Averaged 3.7 assists, running point for Texas Tech a lot. 6.5 boards. 1.5 steals with 18.5 points. Really good numbers, but the shooting numbers dropped way off as he became a number 1 option, from 38% as a freshman down to 30%. Only a 71% free throw shooter. Some wonky shooting mechanics as well. I don't know exactly what they're going to do in Minnesota. I get the feeling they're going to be looking to move on from Andrew Wiggins, and I know they'd want to, but I think it's going to happen sooner than people realize, and that's going to open things up for Okogie and for Colva there. I think initially we're going to have limited playing time for Colva. I don't think he's sliding in and playing 30 minutes initially, although I can see Covington starting at the 4, Wiggins at the 3, and then Okogie and Colva battling out at that 2 spot. Maybe he gets 24, 25 minutes a night as a rookie. He does have some upside. The passing is interesting for Jarrett Colva, but will the shooting, will that ever really get there for him to be able to become this elite prospect? I'm not so sure that that's going to necessarily come. And the top 5. At number 5, Coby White of the Chicago Bulls. Some of this is team placement. Some of this is also just the volume scoring and shooting, decent assist numbers. I've got him ahead of Garland because of the passing. And he showed more of an aptitude to pass. Not that he's a great passer, but more of an aptitude to pass. Okay steals numbers. It's going to be a bit of a shit show on the Bulls team in terms of who's going to defend him or Zach LaVine. The answer there is nobody. But I guess you've got Wendell Carter and you've got Otto Porter who can defend. But Coby White, a really strong offensive player who played that one season for UNC, 28.5 minutes a night. Really good free throw shooter, solid. Took a lot of pull-ups as well on the 3. Assist rate pretty good, and I like him there at number 5. I don't think he starts immediately at point guard, but probably by January he is installed as the starting point guard on this team, and probably has a bit of a top 100 run by the end of the year. At number 4, this is a guy that's jumped up significantly in my ranks versus draft spot. And the same thing I said about Grant Williams before. It doesn't matter that he was picked at pick number 21. He could very easily be the 4th, the 3rd, the 2nd best player in this class. Many draft people that I respect their opinions on are super high on this guy, and it's Brandon Clark, who now plays for the Memphis Grizzlies. I think that their starting front court of the future, I know their starting front court of the future is Jaren Jackson Jr. and Brandon Clark. That could be put on hold by a couple of years depending on what happens with Jonas Valanciunas, whether he returns or not. But Clark is a guy that put up one of the best college seasons of all time, probably second only to Zion Williamson. plus 13.14 PIPM offensively, defensively. Great numbers. He averaged 17 points per game, 3.2 blocks, 8.6 rebounds. He shot just 27% from three, and that's the concern. He doesn't take many threes. I think he can get there as a three-point shooter, but unbelievable two-point percentage. And unlike Jackson Hayes, it isn't just dunks. It's runners, it's floaters, it's little short shots. It's not just dunks, but he is an insane athlete, massive vertical, small arms, much like Zion Williamson, not a big wingspan, but unbelievable functional athleticism that enables him to get up, to go sideways, to move quickly. Big numbers from Brandon Clark, some of the best advanced numbers you will ever see. He will never be a 3-shot per game, block shot per game guy in the NBA, but he can get steals, he can block shots, he can rebound. I think he can develop some scoring. I think he can pass. This is one that I'd really be interested in getting. I think that there was a massive mistake by NBA teams to let him slide this far. Yes, he is older, and that is, I guess, somewhat of a concern. Even when looking in Dynasty, look at a guy that is those couple of years older, but I'm massive on Brandon Clark, and they view him. They traded up to get him. They didn't pay much, but they wanted to get him, and that is their front court of the future. The next three, there shouldn't be too much surprise here. At number 3, we're looking at RJ Barrett of the New York Knicks. The Knicks are going to feed this guy a lot of opportunities. I worry about him for the poor field goal percentage, poor three-point percentage, poor free throw percentage, poor vision, selfish on-court play at times. That's all a worry, and absolutely minuscule defensive stats. They are all not things that are good for a fantasy production point of view. But he shows an ability to be a really go-to scorer. But we've seen guys average 20 points per game. Harrison Barnes, the pencil. And Andrew Wiggins, they average 20 points per game and they crack the top 100 in fantasy. And I worry that's what happens for Barrett. The difference Barrett has versus those two guys is he can generate passes. Now, he's not always a willing passer. Sometimes he's a stupid passer. But at least he does pass the ball, unlike those guys. He's a better rebounder than both of those guys as well. So that gives him a little bit of a boost. I don't ever see him developing into an all-star. Maybe he gets one all-star game appearance. If I had to set the over-under all-stars for RJ Barrett in his career, I'd probably set it at 0.5. I think he can have some decent scoring nights. He averaged 22.5 points with 7.5 boards and 4.5 assists in college. Really, really strong numbers. But the three-point shooting, the free throw shooting, the unbelievable lack of defensive numbers is a real concern with Barrett. But the opportunity is obviously going. I think he's better than the Fort Kevin Knox pretty clearly. But having him, Knox, Barrett, Dennis Smith, all these guys on the one team, man, their usage is going to be so weird as these guys just don't look to do anything apart from score for themselves. At number 2, pretty obviously, Morant comes in there, a sophomore out of Murray State. Really athletic guy. You worry about him defensively. You worry about the shooting. Did shoot 36% from 3. Great free throws. Solid 2-point finishing. Massive assist rate. Great steal rate. And they are two things that should get you really turgid when thinking about fantasy value. Now, a lot of questions I have are, who would you rather have, Trae Young or Morant? To me, it's Trae Young. And in tomorrow's show, I'm going to go through and rank the top 30 rookies from last year and from this year, and you'll see where these guys fit. But is the pretty clear number 2 overall guy here. I think he will have a real chance at being a top 70 guy this season, and probably tops out as a top 40 overall player. Maybe gets to top 30 at some point in his NBA career. At number 1, I don't need a drum roll because you all know who it is, and it is Zion Williamson. He is the clear number 1 pick in the draft. He is the clear number 1 pick in the Dynasty rookie situation. And I say this without hyperbole, but this guy, by the end of his rookie contract, could very easily be the number 1 player in all of fantasy basketball. That is not hyperbole. The last guy that I think I said that about, now I think with Luka Doncic I was sitting at top 10, top 5. The last guy I said that had the opportunity to become that number 1 guy was Karl Anthony Towns. We're not far off him actually getting to that number. Zion is that player that he can get there. 22.5 points, 9 boards, 2 assists, 2 steals, 1.8 blocks. Unbelievably insane numbers from Williamson. He did that in just 30 minutes a night. He's going to run out 34 minutes a night for the Pelicans. Initially, I thought he was going to be a 3rd-round pick. People are definitely going to take him in the 2nd round in redraft leagues. There is no doubt about that. He is a 1st-round Dynasty startup player. I don't have any concerns about that either. I look at this and go, well, he won't shoot 75% on 2s. We all understand that's a given. But he can be a better than 34% 3-point shooter. He can be a better than 2 assists per game guy. He can be a 4.5 assist guy. They can run offense through Zion Williamson. The steal and blocks, they may not stay at that level, but I'm pretty sure he's going to be bloody good there. And if he finished, I wouldn't draft him in the 2nd round, but if he finished this season in the top 20, I think that there's a massive possibility that happens. I think there's a huge possibility that happens, that he is a top 20 player this season, and by the end of his rookie contract, if he is not in consideration for the top 2 or top 3 in Dynasty, I will be pretty, or not in Dynasty, by the end of his 4th season, I think he'll be at least a top 2, top 3 overall fantasy player. That is how good I believe Zion's going to be. So, I think I mentioned this on the podcast the other day, that I was saying about how, someone asked me what value, and I said he's going to be the number 1 player, and they said, what you mean on the Pelicans? Like, no, in the entire NBA. These guys don't come through all that often. Zion, to me, is that number 1 type upside guy, and watch what you're spending to try and get him. But if you've got the number 1 pick, do not overthink it. Do not give it away. Take Zion and be happy with that guy as we move forward. Guys, that'll wrap it up for my Dynasty rookie ranks. I will revisit this after Summer League and go through it and have a look and see how my opinions have changed on some of these guys. But this is early for you guys doing early Dynasty rookie drafts, and just to get an idea of how I feel about these guys from my own point of view. I'm going to be excited to see these guys play in Vegas when I'm over there next week. Tomorrow's show looking at the top 30 players from the 2018 draft and 2019 draft. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and on YouTube. Hit the thumbs up, smash subscribe, leave a comment down below, guys. We are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. Robin Lopez.